What is up, guys? Satch here, and I just got my Tsunami back in. This is the Production X 636 Blasted Tsunami. And originally I hadn't really planned on getting a Tsunami, to be honest with you. It wasn't even on probably my next 3 knives that I had planned on getting, and I made a video earlier where I talked about some knives that I planned on getting, and the Tsunami was not on them. And then one day, a couple weeks ago, I was just thinking, I was like, I plan on getting an Opus V2 next, but, if I checked the Squid Industries website and they had new Tsunamis in stock, would I buy one? And I was thinking about this, and I don't even know where I got the idea from, but I checked, for some reason I checked the website, and there they were. They had some Tsunamis in stock. I mean, I really did not expect it at all, but, now we're here, and now I have a Tsunami. So, of course, I had some issues with it when it came in. You can go watch my last video on that. But I'm not really going to be talking about any of those issues too much, and instead talk about what I think about this thing as a knife. Because ultimately, that is now what it is. The problems have been fixed on it. Again, you can watch my last video, or maybe a video back or whatever, to find out what those problems were. But let's get right into it. The Tsunami, the Squid Industries Tsunami, $750. Pretty crazy. First thing out of the box, it definitely feels and looks pretty premium. The Blasted texture on the handles, the whole look of the knife is pretty futuristic, pretty premium. It has a really nice handle feel to it with the titanium. It feels both light but solid at the same time. I think it's a really nice combination. The blade is also really pretty too. It probably won't really show up well on camera, but there's kind of some 45-degree, I don't know. It is hard to exactly explain. Hopefully it's caught a little bit with the light, but the blade and the whole thing just looks very, very clean. The screws are a little bit different, a little thicker on the outsides compared to the Kraken screws. And then there's this jeweling on the inside, which you can kind of see with the light, kind of creating the light strip look inside the handles. And when you put flash on this thing, with the camera, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Now, of course, it looks pretty nice. Talk about the sound really quick. It's kind of a little muted compared to something like a Kraken. It's not as loud and bouncy, but it still has some good, some good sound to it. I would really refer to it kind of like a muted Kraken overall, if you wanted to get a good idea of how it sounds. But of course, you can hear it here for... All right, and that is your sound test. Ultimately, looks and sound, those will be more up to personal preference than some other things. But how does this thing flip? And I gotta say, I kind of knew going into it that it would be a little bit different. A lot of the people who I've heard who have recommended the Tsunami very much say that it's kind of something that they had to get used to and they had to grow to like. But once they did kind of get past that initial, I don't want to say learning curve, but initial adjustment, they really grew to love it. And because of that, and maybe not necessarily because they said it, but I definitely feel like I'm in that adjustment period right now. There's a lot of things about the Tsunami that just feel a little bit weird. And honestly, last night I found myself kind of really relearning a bunch of the tricks. Out of the box, it fans really well. And at least when it comes to fans, this thing is a dream. But when it comes to a lot of the other rollovers and chaplains and stuff, there's just it just feels a little bit different than the Kraken. And given I don't have a lot of knives, mainly I've been flipping this Tonto V3 Kraken and then the Cheese. And both of those flip and feel very similarly. They're both aluminum, channel, with relative Tonto blades, kind of. You know, they're not obviously exactly the same, but they're very similar, and they feel very similar. And when swapping between them, there really isn't that much of a difference. If I can do a trick on one, I can do a trick on the other. The Tsunami was definitely the first one where it wasn't really instantly possible to just pull it out and do a trick on it. And, you know, it definitely is taking some getting used to. It's hard because on one hand, I don't want to really be negative towards it because, again, it feels super premium. I can definitely understand why some of the changes that were made are something that I'll grow to potentially love and prefer. But at the moment, my first impressions, it's just a little weird. Some of those things are mainly and kind of most noticeably, well, kind of semi most noticeably, most obvious maybe, is the handles are just a slight bit shorter than something like a Kraken, something like a cheese. And, you know, I could put them next to each other, but even on camera, it's kind of hard to pick it up. But they're just a slight bit, you know, maybe even slighter than that, very, very slight bit shorter. And you just feel it, you know, sometimes just like, again, when you do like a fan or something, and at any time your hand is near the bottom, or, you know, you do a rollover and you catch, there's just a little less space on the bottom than you might anticipate. And, you know, it's just something that catches me a little off guard. The other thing is, of course, the handles are tapered, so they're a little bit thicker on the end and a little bit thinner towards the handle, I believe. And because of that, on one hand, this thing is very good at things like, you know, cherry picker type motions and anything where you really need to kind of reach around the handle and kind of squeeze it and manipulate it. Like this thing, I kind of accidentally hit a really nice, Bennett cherry picker on. I'm not going to hit it right now on camera, but just to say that it was definitely a lot easier because it's a lot easier to kind of maneuver the balisong in your fingers. And then on top of that, it's just the weight distribution is just a little different. It almost feels a little bit heavier than a Kraken, despite it being 0.3 ounces lighter. So it's about 10% lighter overall, but I think probably a little bit to do with both the ass weight of it, the fact that it has like some hidden pins inside here that give it its weight. And I don't know, it just feels a little bit different and a little bit off. It's definitely way more neutral and at least more blade biased, more than the Kraken, more neutral overall. And you can kind of feel it. It's a little less sticky on rollovers and chaplains, but again, it fans really, really nice to make up for that. You know, the fanning on this thing is, again, you're seeing me do it a lot because, again, I'm still kind of getting used to doing the other tricks on it. But overall, interesting knife. Very interesting knife. I don't really want to give any like hardcore, this is how I feel on it, this is good, this is bad, because again, it really is just, it's different, not necessarily in a bad way. You know, the things like the shorter handles, different weight distribution, blade size, all these kinds of different things are, you know, it's hard to say just yet whether I like it or I dislike it, but it is definitely very different, definitely very high quality, definitely very well machined. But is it better than the Kraken? For me right now, it doesn't feel that way. For me right now, I find myself picking up my Kraken a lot. Well, not a lot, but I find myself grabbing the Kraken. Again, I've only really been flipping this thing for a day, so again, first impressions. But I do find myself reaching for my Kraken just to kind of remind myself, like, oh no, that feels nice. That's how I like my thing flipping. But again, I don't really have that many knives, so in comparison, it's hard to exactly tell. There's definitely some things that I do think it does better than the Kraken. I think I do prefer the lighter weight to it. It definitely is helpful for longer sessions. I prefer how it looks. I don't know if I prefer how it looks. I don't know. It feels more quality. Not exactly sure what else to say about it. So I'm going to end the video right there before I end up stumbling for 30 more minutes. But Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll probably come back with a full review on this thing, maybe in a week, maybe in a month. Probably closer to a month, whenever I decide that I've really flipped it enough. And I got some other things, some other tutorials coming. Regardless, though, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have a tsunami. What do you think about the tsunami? Have a great day. Satch forever. Peace.